So I decided to make this video because I was online looking at guns and people are asking like $1,000 for just very basic AR builds. And I guess that's just my opinion. But I was hoping that I could start inspiring people to learn how to build their own ARs. That way they could build their own ARs for a lot less than $1,000 or for $1,000 put much better parts in them. This has been an ongoing theme for years that I've noticed on this gun trader website that I use. And a lot of times these ARs are just very basic mil-spec ARs, nothing really special about them. Now, if they put premium parts in them, then I could see charging $1,000 or more. Sometimes we'll see a guy posting like an old build with key mod stuff that's just Cerakoted and, $740, I guess. If you want something quick, then that's, up to you. But I don't know if I would pay $740 for that. When with a few investments of some tools and your time and being able to be patient and wait for parts and sales, you can build a really nice AR for $1,000. Even if you just decide to put your own upper and lower together and then, mess with the lower with, some more boutique parts, I think that would save you a lot of money. So I wanted to show you 3 examples of AR-15s that I've built or put together, and I've spent $1,000 or less in all 3. Each one serves a different purpose and shoots a different caliber, and I really had to plan out my build, and that will save you some money in the long run when you know exactly what you want to do and exactly what part that you want to put on it. I will say when it comes to building your first few AR-15s, it's kind of hit or miss. You'll kind of figure out what parts work best for you, what you like, what you don't like, and a lot of times you will end up with a pile of different stocks and grips and different little parts that you purchased over the years, and that's just kind of how building AR-15s work. But I think it's a really cool hobby, and it's not a bad thing having a bunch of extra parts laying around. This particular one is in 300 blackout, and I even put a Spikes Tactical Nickel Boron bolt carrier group and a Rise Armament 535 trigger, a Sylvan Arms folding stock adapter, an SBA 4 brace on it, and a Vortex Spark AR and FDE. I mean, these are pretty good parts. I even have a Radian Raptor charging handle. It's not a basic build by any means, in my opinion. I could pick the color scheme and the size barrel and the caliber that I want, what flashlight, what optic that I want to run. But that's kind of the, plus side to building your own AR. Because a lot of times when you buy one from somebody else, you really don't know how they treated it, how many rounds they had through it. And a lot of times you'll change out parts for what you want anyway. So in the long run, you're kind of, putting the pieces together anyway. So you might as well just build it from scratch. This particular build has a very nice stock on it. It's an ACS stock by Magpul. And, the Strike Industries buffer tube isn't cheap. It's a Fortis K1 Castle Nut and end plate is another Radian Raptor. It's a K2 plus Magpul grip. I got an ambidextrous safety, a Cobra billet, trigger guard, another Rise Armament trigger. I even got a Swamp Fox Arrowhead 1-8 with a Swamp Fox Independence mount on top. I've got a quality Odin Olight flashlight. There's a lot of good stuff in here. A Ballistic Advantage spiral fluted 223 Wild 16-inch carbine length gas barrel. The list goes on the, what I consider quality. I even put an Armis spec silent capture spring in here, and that's kind of a cool buffer system. But overall, I'd much rather have this rifle than some of those $1,000 rifles that I saw online. And I know that's all really subject to personal preference. Maybe you really like some of those rifles and how they built them. There's nothing wrong with that. But I can almost tell by looking that they really didn't think out their builds, or they just put an upper and a lower together. There's no really different parts on the lower parts kit. And, all the parts that I put on my lowers are kind of unique and different. And let's be honest, aesthetics aren't everything, but I really like the aesthetics to my rifles, and that's because I built them. But I really do encourage you to learn how to build your own ARs, how the parts work and function. You actually learn to be a better shooter and how to problem solve when something goes wrong on your rifle when you learn how to build your own ARs. And I don't know, there's something really satisfying when you finish and complete a build and you finally put all the parts that you wanted to on it and you kind of look at the work of art that some of these are. I am by no means a gunsmith, and I've had my fair share of hiccups and mistakes along the way, and I think that's just part of the learning process. Some builds I've sold, and some builds I've parted out. Some of my builds didn't even function all that well, and sometimes I looked at some of my old builds and really kind of questioned what was going on in my mind when I decided to build that. Don't feel overwhelmed and take your time. There is a lot to learn to this, and it is a process. But I would either watch videos or watch somebody else put on a particular part, and that's kind of how I learned how each different one functioned. And you will have to make some investments. The main one is your time, buying parts, waiting for parts, and putting them in, trying them out, making sure that they work. And the other one is tools, if you don't already own the tools that you need. But just remember, $1,000 can go a long way when it comes to the AR-15 platform. It is literally the Legos for adults. The main problem I have is having enough money to build all the ARs that I want and put all the parts that I want on them. Because the shooting sports is an expensive hobby, but it's a fun hobby, and like I said in the intro, I do encourage everyone to learn how to build their own AR-15.